Welcome to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm Catherine Tomlinson and I started an eco conscious pottery company called Oxford Clay. Now, Oxford Clay, I don't just make pottery, I also make books and courses for other potters who want to be more environmentally friendly in their pottery making. And that's what this podcast is all about. And I can't wait to get started. Let's go. Hello, welcome back to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm your host, Catherine Tomlinson, and in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about writing in pottery, on pottery, writing. So, trying to do lettering in clay on your pots. Um, I actually think this is a really, really difficult skill in pottery. Well, I personally always found it really difficult to make lettering look kind of like neat, kind of like you can read it, which would help, wouldn't it, with like writing? I've always found it really, really difficult. And I've tried like a few different things, and I thought it would be quite a good idea just to kind of like tell you about all the different things I've tried to do lettering, in case lettering was something like you wanted to do on your pottery, and yeah, and just to kind of throw out some ideas really about like how you can do lettering in pottery. So, okay, when I sat down to think about this, I thought, okay, there were kind of six different ways I could think of that you can do lettering in pottery. And yeah, why? Okay, why would you want to do lettering? Okay, so the first reason is it might be like part of the design of your pot. You might want to like write something on your pot. It's just part of like the decorative aspect of it. The next reason is you might want to put like a dedication on your pot. Say like if you've made something for someone, you might want to just like have a little message on the base of it or something. In those instances, you often have a very small space to kind of like write your dedication. So I found that really, really challenging. And another reason is you might want to sort of like mark your pottery in terms of like, this is mine, I've made it. You might want to have like your initials or something on the pot. And so you're going to be like needing kind of lettering for that as well. So, okay, so let's get on with like the different ways you can do lettering. And these are just basically, this is just a kind of like all the ones, like a list of basically all the ones I could think of. And then I will tell you at the end, sort of like my sort of the ones that my go-to techniques now in terms of like how to do writing, lettering and pottery. So I think it's really funny because like I think because we sort of write so much, I guess, on paper with pens and stuff, you think, well, when I first started trying to do writing on pottery, I thought, I know, I will just like write using a pen or something in pottery, in the clay. I'll just like scratch what I want to say in that clay. So that's the first way. And that's the kind of the way I thought automatically, let's give it a go. So way number one is literally you can just take anything like a pen or like a pencil or something, or you can get these like potter's needles that can help you like sort of etch, like scratch lettering in pots, like directly in the clay. So you'd be doing this like at the leather hard clay stage would probably be the easiest stage to do this at. And you're literally just writing as if you're writing on a piece of paper. You're just writing on the clay. But what I found with this technique is that it's actually really difficult to make it look neat. And I think that's just because you get kind of like little build-ups of like clay as you're kind of scraping away, and it can kind of get in the way of how it looks. And it can be like, I don't know, it doesn't look when I've done it, I just feel like it could be neater and it could be easier to read. So that's the first way. And I kind of had limited success with just etching, like writing in clay. Okay, so the next way of writing in clay or on your pottery is that you could just directly do it with glazes. Okay, so you could either you had like a big area you could write with like one glaze, and then that could be your writing, or you could you can get these like underglaze pencils. I remember like my pottery evening class. So I guess you could write with those, then put a transparent glaze on top, or you could write with oxide. So that's what quite a lot of people do actually. They have like say like a base glaze, like in like a white or something, and then they will like just paint with oxides over the top, some writing. So yeah, so that's the second way. You can actually just write with glaze, with sort of a coloured glaze. Yeah, to kind of do your lettering. So obviously this is really tricky on the bottom of a pot because you couldn't really do that because it was, in the glaze firing, unless your foot was quite deep, your pot foot was quite deep, you wouldn't really be able to like write in glaze on the base of the pot. So unless that base glaze, pot glazed for like bottom of the pot was quite like yeah, like recessed into the pot, and you had a foot which was clean of glaze, you wouldn't really be able to do that because the glaze would just melt in the kiln. So this would be kind of best for maybe like the sides of pots or like the inside of pot. Yeah, so writing with glaze is an option, or oxides, that's an option. Oh yeah, so another thing I thought about this was that it's actually when you write with oxides, you can actually write with oxides directly onto clay. So like say for example, if you have like an iron oxide or something, you can just take a little bit of water, mix it with the iron oxide powder, and then you can write on the base of the pot. But the problem with this is it rubs off really, really easily. So yeah, I guess you could try this with an eco-conscious oxide as well. You could try it with verdigris that you can make yourself, or you could try it with rust. You could even try it with like a mixing, like with rust powder. You could make an oxide that way as well. But they do rub off really easily, and they're very disruptible. So like if you accidentally kind of brush it or something, that lettering is like rubbed off. So yeah, not ideal, not like a great way of writing, but you could make it part of your kind of glazing decoration for sure, definitely. Um, okay, so the next way is that I did experiment for a while with different things that you can buy as part of like the cake decorating industry. So cake decorating, fondant, sugar fondant creations are like a huge industry, and they have so many really cool tools for doing lettering. So obviously lots of people want lettering on cakes and stuff. So like, after having a browse and like having a think about like some of these things, um, I found that you can actually get silicone molds for lettering. So that is definitely something, if you wanted to kind of do quite big writing, you could have like you can actually get cake decorating sugar fondant molds that are silicone. You can actually get those for letters. So what you do with those, if you were going to use them for clay, is you just brush a little bit of corn flour into the silicone mold, and sort of smooth your clay into the mold, kind of wipe off the kind of back end of the mold. So you've just got like just the lettering in the silicone mold. You just wait for it to dry a little bit, and then you can just push it out onto a tea towel, and then it's essentially like a sprig mold. I mean, you can get like plaster sprig molds as well in pottery, but those cake decorating molds, those silicone ones, are very intricate, and they're very good for using with clay. So yeah, you can do raised lettering that way using a silicone mold. I'm just interrupting this episode to tell you about a totally free guide I've made just for you on how to make a stoneware pottery glaze. So, if you've never made a glaze before, or if you make loads of glazes and you just want a recipe, this guide is for you. It tells you everything you need to know, and it's available via the link in the show notes. Let's get on with the episode. And there are other things actually I saw when I was sort of looking into like the different ways of doing lettering. There are other things you can use like for cake decorating. So they kind of do like stencils, and that's for when I guess they're using some kind of like food coloration or something. And they're you can they can basically you can use them for painting directly onto like icing and stuff. So they do stencils for lettering. So that I guess goes back to like the second way of making lettering. So yeah, so that's a third way of making lettering. You can actually do sprigs, silicone mold sprigs, and yeah, you can attach those onto your pot with a little bit of slip. Um, okay, so the fourth way is that you can do slip trailing. So I don't really practice slip trailing in my pottery, but slip trailing is a way of basically you're using like a liquid clay. It's usually like a coloured liquid clay, and then it's kind of in you can kind of suck it up into this like giant pipette thing, and which is specially made for slip trailing. And then you kind of squeeze it out, and you're doing the writing, and it basically makes and you do it again on like leather hard pottery, and this then it's fired, so you're basically kind of creating a kind of line on your pottery. It's like a raised line made of clay, made of slip, made of a colored slip. And then you're then once it's bisque fired, you can then glaze with like a transparent glaze. That's the idea, that then the color like shows through, and then it's fired again, and then so that's another way of making of lettering. So I suppose it's like I guess maybe if you're like a bit like making a cake and you're like piping like icing or something, only it's kind of runny. And yeah, I mean, I don't do it, but like yeah, I bet it's like it can create really really beautiful effects. So yeah, that's another way of doing like lettering. So the fourth way is that sorry, this is the fifth way. I've just realised. So many ways. Okay, so right, so now we're getting on to the two which I have found the most success with in my own pottery. Okay, so this is the fifth way. Yeah. So the fifth way is that I actually found, I can't remember where I found these in terms of like whether they were on a cake decorating website or whether they were just on kind of like a general internet like place. You can actually find little metal lettering, and I'm going to sort of hold one up for you. They come with like a kind of stick that you can stick them onto, but they're basically like a tiny little letter made out of metal. It's like a little metal stamp, and what you can do is you can individually stamp these letters into clay. And when I was doing kind of like, so basically, I've made some things for people before. I wanted to put like maybe like a message or something on the bottom of the pot, and I found the most success with these. And what you can do actually is you can roll out a piece of clay, like a thin piece of clay, and you can do the lettering, the message on this, on your sort of, your kind of dedication, but like on a piece of clay, and that helps you with like making sure like you're not doing it directly on your pot. You're doing it kind of like on a you're kind of, you can have a draft, you're doing it on your kind of like piece of clay before, then you can stick it onto your pot with slip. So you can stick it onto like the underside of your pot with slip. So yeah, these little metal letters, I've actually seen them. They're brilliant. Yeah, I've actually seen them. Like in a kind of antiques market as well. I think they used to use metal stamps for printing. Like they used to kind of like, apologies if this isn't like completely historically accurate, but when I've seen them in a kind of antiques market, it's almost like they're metal letters, and I guess they used to arrange them so they could do like a printing press, like for like books and stuff. So you can actually buy these like kind of like old like antique versions of these little metal stamps, or you can just buy them new. Like the set I've got is like a new one, and it's kind of like italics. So I thought that'd be quite good at kind of like a bit like handwriting. So mine are all like italics. Just holding up like a W there. I don't know, it's not coming out very well on the camera, but basically you just stamp these into clay. And again, you can just dust a little bit of corn flour onto the metal stamps, and that just means that they kind of like can like they just come away from the clay a bit easier, because they're quite intricate, and you don't really want clay like getting stuck in like the between the letters and stuff. But yeah, they're really, really good if you want nice, neat writing. Which, yeah, I found which which I do. Compared to the way my handwriting scratching into clay. These are much more preferable. I can actually make a nice kind of neat like message into clay. Okay, so that's the fifth way, and I love that way, and I found a lot of success with that way. Just making a nice, yeah, just a nice, neat message. So, okay, so the sixth way is that you can actually get stamps made up of letters. An acrylic stamp, you can get an acrylic stamp made. I guess they're 3D printed, but you can send away. Companies can create these stamps for you, and you can literally just you can have like a logo. Say if you wanted a maker's mark or something, you can get a logo done. You can get just like a word done. If you're doing something that's part of a design, I'll show you. I basically make little dishes with the word Oxford in, which I sell in a shop in Oxford. And I basically to get those dishes, to get that word done every time perfectly, I thought, oh, I can't be like stamping, like individual letters every time. I sort of didn't trust myself to get the spacing and right apart, each letter, and to get it right every time. So I thought, how could this be easier? And I thought, oh, maybe I could get, the word Oxford as like one stamp, and I got it made as an acrylic stamp. So yeah, there's, like I said, there's different companies that do this online, but I've got a couple of stamps actually. There's one which is like a maker's mark, which I stamp in the base of all my pottery, which is just Oxford clay, and that's an acrylic stamp which I had made, and it's quite like tiny writing. And then I have a kind of medium-ish one, which is like an acrylic stamp, which is like Oxford, and I kind of use that for like coasters. I can kind of create an Oxfordy design for coasters using that stamp, and it's really good. And again, corn flour is like your best friend in these situations. You can literally just get a brush, just dust a little bit of corn flour, and it really does help the acrylic stamp like come away from the clay when you're stamping it in. Yeah, and you can get any words made up from on acrylic stamps. Yeah, like I said, you can have like a picture of a logo that can be printed, or it can you can just get words. So if you're having the same word a lot and you want to be able to just like do it every time in your pottery, then acrylic stamps are amazing. So yeah, oh yeah, so it's been really good talking to you about all the different ways you can do writing in pottery. Yeah, I feel like I could probably do better writing in pottery if I practiced more. I guess it's one of those skills where you can just practice and practice, but I just thought, like, when I just started scratching into clay or trying to paint on letters onto clay, I did just find it really difficult. So I thought, yeah, let's tell you about some slightly easier ways where you can use stamps and stuff to do like perfect letters. Yeah, so it's been really nice talking to you about it, and I hope this episode's been interesting and like helpful for you if you're doing letters writing in your pottery. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. And until then, wishing you very happy potting and stamping letters and writing in pottery. And I'll see you then. Okay, bye. Thank you so much for joining me on that episode. And if you want to find out more about eco friendly pottery, head over to the Oxford Clay website, which is www.oxfordclay.co.uk. Can't wait to see you there.